Hello and welcome to Old Tunes Fresh Takes. This is the podcast where we learn old tunes, record fresh takes of them and encourage you to do the same.
This is for musicians of all styles and abilities, so whether you're playing the musical saw or you've got a stylophone you found in your attic, we don't care, we want to hear from you. We don't care if your version's recorded on your laptop, on your phone, or in a world-class recording studio, we want to hear it.
And you really don't have to consider yourself a folk musician. We're not really sure whether we are or not. We're especially keen to hear from people who could change these songs into something completely different, an entirely fresh take.
Yeah, so if you want to take part, just go and check out our Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud pages. There you're going to find a full list of the songs we're working on this series. We share scores, we share chord sheets, we share versions we like, there's Spotify playlists, YouTube links. So links to these can be found in the description of this episode. Remember while you're there to follow, like, subscribe so you can stay up to date with everything that's going on.
We absolutely always reply to messages and are really keen to hear from as many of you as possible. So wherever you're up to, if you'd like to submit something, get in touch and we'll be happy to provide feedback and advice.
We've had some amazing contributions this month. Contributors include Asymptotes, Johnny Black, Catapholc, Stuart Clark, Ian Jackson, JIAL featuring Meg Wassell, Hope House Assemble, Pomegranate Jones and Winters, Jarv, SMOPH featuring Vicky Hevelwood, and John Paiva. Really looking forward to chatting about these. They've been great so far. We'll be playing a clip from each as we discuss them, but if you'd like to listen along to the full takes with us, there is a link to the playlist in the description of this episode.
So I'm Tim Woodson.
And I'm Jack the Robot.
And this month we are looking at Edward.
So yeah, Edward. It's our third murder ballad in a row.
Absolutely.
Do you want to just remind us of the story?
Yeah, sure. So this is a tale about a young lad and his mother. The young lad comes back from a day out in the fields, and his mother says, "Oh, what's that blood there on your clothing?" And he says, "Oh, it's my horse, my horse's blood." And she goes, "Well, it's not really. It doesn't look like horse's blood." And he goes, "Well, yeah, you got me. It was my greyhound." And she goes, "Well, it doesn't really look like greyhound's blood either." And he goes, "Right, well, okay, you got me. It's my brother, presumably your other son." And she goes, "Oh, right, okay, well, where are you off then?" And he says, "Well, somewhere far away, and hopefully I'll never come back."
Yeah, like I say, it's another murder ballad. We've dealt with the cruel mother, and we've dealt with the bitter withy, not traditionally described as a murder ballad, but it is. There's a murder in there.
Yeah.
I think one of the questions that keeps coming up for me working with these tunes is, how much sympathy do we feel for these murderers?
Right, yeah.
You know, in that first episode, we were all quite conflicted about how to treat this woman. The second episode, not so much. And then this third episode, have you felt any conflict about sympathy or?
The sympathy kind of goes out to the mother, really, more than because she's got this issue of one son who is, no longer exists, and another son who is presumably now wanted for murder.
Yeah, I completely agree. As I was looking at the lyrics, there's something I realised, and you picked up on this narrative device last time. It's a slow reveal.
Right.
But as the song goes on, before he says it, you get that there's something not right. And I think the mother knows as soon as he walks in the door.
Right. Yeah.
My feeling of this song actually is we as the listener are finding out what's going on. But I think in that situation, as soon as her son walks through the door, she knows he's killed his brother.
Right. Yeah. So I remember feeling very guilty about having stolen a £2 coin from my mum's.
Yeah.
When I was a young lad, and that's quite a formative memory for me. So this brings it all back, where the moment I go up to my mum and do you know what I did actually? I went into my mum and said, "Mum, I've found this £2," and she goes, "Okay, fine." And then I walk out again and think, "Oh, got away with that." But then the guilt crept in, so I went back in again and said, "Oh, actually, yeah, I didn't find it. A friend gave it to me." And there's a point where my mum's like, "Right, what's going on?" So 6-year-old Tim, he learned these lessons early. But this is exactly the kind of thing that exactly the experience that I think. I say exactly the experience. A slightly amplified version of that experience is captured in this tale, I think.
But absolutely, the point being that most of us have had that sort of confrontation with a parent where they know you've done something wrong.
Right.
And you are trying to think on your feet about what's the response I'm giving here. And they know from the start.
Yeah.
and it's just a matter of time. I think that's what's really one of the things that's really interesting about this song.
Do you think if he got away with it, if his mum hadn't like actually thought, he'd then have had to go out and kill whichever animals he claimed it was to cover up his own tracks?
Oh, your mare's still in the field.
Yeah. I thought you killed it. Like, yeah. Not a wise man.
So, of course, it's hard to talk about murder this month without thinking about the tragic killing of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and other innocent black people in America and here. And I know this has not directly influenced my take, but it's certainly influenced my thinking around it. It's influenced some of the contributions we've had. And we just want to take a moment to say we stand in full support of the Black Lives Matter, and our thoughts go out to those people involved in the protests. So, I really love your version. Do you want to tell us how you made it?
Sure. So this is my tune. I picked this one, and I picked it a while ago. I got into folk music because I want to learn how to tell good stories in music. And for me, this is a really good example of really simple storytelling, but really effective. I had quite a clear vision for what I wanted to do with this tune. And I'm thrilled to say, I think I've actually achieved it. So the first thing I wanted to do, I wanted it to be vocal-led.
Yeah.
Start off with a single vocal leading up to a really rich harmony.
Yeah.
It's almost like an unnatural state, this idea of you've killed your brother. That's quite an extreme thing to go through. And so what better way to capture unnaturalness within vocals than auto-tune?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I downloaded this lovely free plugin. It's called Greylon.
It's Greylon by Auburn Sounds. It's available free, so go and download it and have a play around with it.
That's it, yeah. So I started with this single vocal. I think initially I sent you a demo of it with auto-tune on from the beginning, and and you kind of steered me away and said maybe have it coming in a bit later, and I thought, you know what, that's perfect, because I want this to be start off very human and get less human.
Yeah.
So it comes in gradually as the tune goes along, as more harmonies are brought in, and it's a very distinctive sound actually that you get. I've shamelessly tried to mimic tunes by Bon Iver, Woods, for example, is one of the tunes.
Yeah.
And James Blake as well, big influence on this.
Right, yeah.
Again, I think they really capture this sort of detached sound that you get when you use auto-tune. So I've brought it in gradually. As the tune goes on, as this mother's gradually realising what's going on. Another thing I wanted to use to underpin this was reverb.
Yeah.
So I decided I would have the vocals quite dry to begin with.
Yep.
Again, just like the auto-tune gradually creeps in, the reverb also gradually creeps in. So the sense of space is kind of evolving as the tune happens.
Yeah, yeah.
And it reaches the pinnacle at the moment where the brother is confessing what he's done.
Yeah.
And there's this lift at that point, and
there
is a vocal that comes in over the top.
Yeah, that falsetto vocal soars.
That's it. Soaring vocal over the top.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a wail.
Yeah.
Right, so there's this, again, another evocative human feature. This wail comes in, and the tune's lifted. There's percussion that comes in at that point as well.
Yeah, so I love this, that when you hit that point, there's that soaring falsetto vocal, and you suddenly realise, this is the point that sends shivers, or one of the points that sends shivers down my spine, and you realise you've been taken on this journey, and you sort of take the plunge at that point, but you've come quite far, but through that gradual introduction of auto-tune, layered harmonies and reverb, you're really guided along this journey, but it breaks at that point, and it sends shivers down my spine. Fantastic.
I mean, that's there's no higher compliment, I think, frankly. And I got Jack shivering.
You made me shiver, boy.
Made you shiver, that's it, yeah.
So and then it moves on to the next section. Where does it go from there? Because you've added your own vibe on the end there.
Right, there's a synth that comes in at that point. I've described it as a sort of bleepy bloopy synth.
Yeah, really cool.
Which is just doing an arpeggiated figure.
Yeah.
But the rhythm is never quite set. It's not like it's kind of a stuttering rhythm almost. So it's sort of, how do you move on from this? Well, I don't know. And then once that comes to a close, we get to another section of where the mother is then asking why. And this is not in the original, not in any of the versions I've come across, but I thought this is really important.
Yeah.
That she would ask, you would ask why. She doesn't in these versions, and we've commented about the impassiveness of that, but I wanted her to ask why.
Yeah.
To help tell that, I wanted the harmony to simplify at that point.
Yeah.
Because it's like she's getting down to brass tacks.
Yeah, absolutely. So where there were chromatic bass lines and inflections, actually this is a straight up 4, 5, 6 harmony.
That's it. Auto-tune fully on again, but I think that's partly for the strength of it. You know, there's a really powerful thing when you've got these simple chords but blasted with real intensity.
Yeah.
Over the top of that, I've described them as diving synths. So there's one going up, one coming down, and they're almost siren-like.
Yeah.
And that's the effect I wanted to get. They're in before, but I think they come to their real apex at that point.
Well, they're disorientating a little bit, and there are other little bits in there that are disorientating.
Yeah, so I've used this kind of pattering percussion throughout the thing, and that's moving around the mix.
Yeah.
And that's something I really wanted to get, as well as this sense of stuff just moving around. So you're never quite sure where everything's coming from or where it's going, and those diving synths do the same. They move across and left and right, and really want to get a really big sense of space. After that section, we strip it right back, and it's down to the son, who is just on his own, really exposed, but with the full auto tune on. He's explaining to the mother that it's the rage. He just couldn't overcome the rage.
I think that juxtaposition of the frailty of delivery but talking about rage, that really gets me. It's really beautiful, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. He's saying the rage, it runs too strong. The rage, it crouches long. It might have ruled over me. And so there's this sense of, and I think this is quite a human thing that we experience actually, is you know, we all encounter anger, and often it's those points where things spill over that you've lost control. There are most shameful moments.
Yeah.
I felt it was really important to try and capture that in this tune.
Again, it's that juxtaposition of sort of like it's maybe the point where you're most vulnerable often when you're experiencing that rage, and these aren't things that we generally put together, but you've achieved it.
It is the blood of my brother John. Oh, Lady Mother, oh, Lady Mother. It is the blood of my brother John. He wouldn't be ruled by me.
Okay, do you want to talk about your version?
Yeah, so I'll confess, I was a little bit late to the game this month. I was a little bit late getting started, so I only had time to write one note, is the joke, of course. Just thought I'll write that really good note.
When we talked about it in the last episode, we talked about the economy of storytelling. I think you've gone with economy of melody for this.
Yeah. Oh, melody out the window. Harmony, get lost.
Right.
Make up for it with guitars and reverb. So when I was originally looking around with it, I had a really nice reharmonization of the melody. What's the blood upon your sword? Oh, son David, my son David.
Oh, lovely.
What is the blood upon your sword? Promise, tell me true.
Oh, that is lovely.
Right? Isn't that nice?
Right. And it sounds nothing like what you've done.
Well, that was my starting point. And you know what? I went so far down a road of that being it. And and it got to a point where I thought, well, for a start, it's not very me. It's not very Jack the Robot.
No.
But also, like I say, I was listening to other people's takes, and the SMOPH version came in. I thought that's so cool.
Right, because that version just basically the melody's alternating between pretty much two notes the whole way through, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just got those grinding guitars and smashing drums. And I was thinking just about what's the mood of the piece. I mean, for me, this conversation, like I said before, it's just an absolutely desolate conversation. It's a conversation between two people, both of whom know what has happened, know the impact of the weight of what he's done, and it's just miserable and desolate. I was thinking of Crime and Punishment, a Dostoevsky novel, where it paints a picture of like a pathetic guy. You know, murderer's pathetic for the most part. That's what you feel about it, isn't it? But if you love that person and your son, like, oh God, it's just such a desolate conversation. And so I thought, right, screw it, I'll do it. It's one note. That's it. But I really quite got into it in the vocal deliveries, and that's when I just doing those vocals I was like, right, this is it, because I really was feeling like as I was delivering those vocals, that feeling of just complete desolation. I mean, obviously, there's the big, there's the change at the end where it's like it's finally off my chest.
Interesting. The thing is, structurally, it's actually quite similar to mine in that sense.
Yeah.
That's what struck me about it. But and I think there is something about this tune that it just naturally lends itself to this progression and then release.
Well, and I think it's interesting that we both lopped off the last few verses.
Right. Yeah.
Like you've written some to substitute that, but I've stopped at "That's the blood of my brother John." It's a shame because some of those lyrics are really nice. That whole thing about when the sun and the moon meet in yonder glen, and I almost included a line at the end of "When will you come back again?" Just that line,
right?
But I think it ends when you find out what's happened. You know?
Yeah, that's the real brunt, isn't it?
Yeah. I wonder why those verses have survived. I guess it gives a sort of resolution to the story, but to me the story is resolved. I just wonder whether it's the poetry of those final verses that has allowed them to survive rather than the content, because they're just nicely written words, you know.
A very good question, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so once I knew it was just going to be one note, it was just a case of playing one note a lot. I recorded the bass and the guitars quite early on, you know, the chugging power chords and distorted guitars. I recorded that quite early on. It was just a case of deciding when they were going to come in. All the sounds in this are created from guitars. And it's all guitars. Like what sounds like a synth that starts it off, that's a tail of a note on a guitar. Now here's the thing, is when I took it into being one note, I already had these lovely guitar parts recorded, like these really nice chords, and I thought I can't waste them. So I used a fantastic little plugin called Graylon by
funny. We're not sponsored, by the way.
What I did is I used the pedal effect in Ableton, which I love. It creates these dirty distortions. If you just gain to 100%, you know, and then the auto tune comes after that. So the guitar notes, they waver between notes, and I've got it set to move quite slowly between the notes. It's not snapping to notes, but. It's auto-tune, and I really like that effect, and I think like I'll use it more.
Right, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, and you've used guitars because there's this the thing that struck me about a minute in. You get the it sounds like a very human wail.
Yeah.
But is that's guitar as well?
Yeah, I hadn't spotted how human it was, but now you've said that, and I've gone back and listened to it. It does sound like a scream, doesn't it? But that is guitar.
Right,
yeah. And that's the same guitar that then comes in right at the end for the. In inverted commas guitar solo, you know, for the last bit. That it's the same part, and it's just the chords. It's the chords that I was playing that I literally just played now, and I put them through loads of distortion and auto tune, and they wail over the top of the sound, and the distortion's really breaking some of the time.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
I one of the things I really like about this, and I'm used to seeing you perform stuff in person where you don't hold back.
Yeah.
Like you go red in the face, your fingers bleed, and you know that's the impression you get when you get to that release.
Yeah.
Of you absolutely just going to town.
Yeah. It's quite hard to shout so much and not worry about annoying the neighbours. You know, I did 3 takes of that final verse, and I used them all the way through. There's always 3 vocals playing. One's right down the middle and 2 on the sides.
Yeah,
there's slightly more delay on the son's vocals than the lady mother's vocals, but
right.
But there's always 3 vocals running, so I knew I just had to get 3 good takes, and I just did 3 takes, and then hopefully the neighbours don't complain. So here's an interesting thing, I think. The guitars might sound like they're really loud, but actually they're not that loud in the room. They're quite loud, but it's through a tiny little Marshall amp. I heard a thing a little while ago. Actually, it was Ben Frost. It was an interview with Ben Frost.
Yeah.
But a couple of other people saying this, where they say actually, in a lot of ways, especially for home recording, they prefer a small amp because the sound of a small amp being pushed to its limit is better than the sound of a big amp that's only doing sort of 20% of what it's capable of.
Interesting.
The sound, I mean, especially if you're going for loud music, the sound of kit is better when it's being pushed as hard as it'll go.
Yeah. Well, this sounds huge.
Great.
So it's absolutely paid off.
Oh, son David, my son David. Your hawking and blood was never
Right, that's enough of talking about us. We've had some great versions submitted by listeners. We're going to be listening to them now. We're going to be playing some snippets as we go. If you want to listen to the full versions, check out the playlist that's linked to in the description of this episode.
Cool. So Johnny Black has sent in a version. Really clever, actually, what he's done with this. So
Yeah.
I think the big thing he's done is taken this theme of this kind of inter-family fratricide conflict going on, and he's kind of twisted it and made it into a kind of modern tale about the love of money. Very much a kind of activist spirit behind this one.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the sample it begins with?
It's the Jeannie Robertson version of this tune, and it's really sweet, actually. It's really like lovely. It's quite an influential recording of it, actually. But he's just used a little clip of it at the start, and that really sets the tone lovely.
Yeah, when that drum beat first kicks in, it's great. It reminds me a lot of Techno Animal, and then it moves very quickly away from that. But the sound of these big room drums is great. I love it. It's got this whole 90s vibe, hasn't it? Like, it goes hand in hand with that revolutionary anti-capitalist thing. It reminds me of tracks like Little Britain by Dreadzone, or like Rambling Man by Lemon Jelly.
Right,
and so I used to go to this festival called Beautiful Days quite a lot, which is run by the Levelers, you know, and it's this whole vibe, and I can just imagine being at Beautiful Days and if Johnny Black got up on stage and played this track, I'd be in bliss. I think it's great.
Right.
It's got that really hopeful protest feel.
Totally, it's kind of euphoric in a way, isn't it?
It is,
like,
yeah.
What he's done with the melody, like just twisted it a little bit to make it fit with his vibe, and it's really singable. Recorded the vocals all on a laptop mic.
Legend, I love it.
Right,
that's what we need more of.
Absolutely, yeah. It sounds incredible for that as well.
What's the blood upon your hands, oh son David, my son David? What's the blood upon your hands? Promise, tell me true. That's the blood of money, dear, for my brothers, for my brothers. That's the blood of money, dear. Now the world is bleeding dry. Take a check and off you go. Sorry.
Ian Jackson has sent us Edie.
Yeah, Edie. I really like this one. It's really good to see Ian branching out in different directions.
Absolutely. And I think what's interesting about this is he's taken quite a short, simple song and made it even shorter.
Yeah.
It's just two kind of reasonably short. I mean, it's probably 4 verses.
Yeah.
But in two sets, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd be interested to hear the acoustic take as well. You know how with your EP you released a set of acoustic versions as well? I'd be interested to hear that from Ian, like to have the side-by-side comparison.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I really like the drone running through it. I think it reminds me of Catapholc and some of the accordion things that we were listening to in the last episode, you know, having that accordion droning through the piece. I think that's really nice.
There were a couple of drones in the last one that made me think, I'd quite like to do one with a drone.
Yeah. I really like the double tracking of the vocals as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes across well. It gives it a lot of richness in the vocals. Nice guitar riff. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear an acoustic session. Again, it's the sort of song that I want to hear down in a barn dance. Like Ian keeps delivering these songs I really want to hear live.
Edie came home with blood on his blade and went to lay his head. He swore to his mother he'd killed the dog, but he slayed his brother instead. He swore he'd killed the old grey mare, but he slayed his brother instead. He swore he'd killed a running hare, but he slayed his brother instead.
So, Stuart Clark. Wow.
Yeah.
This is like a full arrangement.
Yeah, it's great. I'm really glad that someone has sent in something that's more of an orchestral kind of sound. I would love to hear this with a proper orchestra, actually.
Yeah, same, of course, yeah.
And it's got that really nostalgic sort of 70s kind of swing orchestra feel, you know.
It's like the theme music to some sort of 50s American sitcom. He said that he didn't pay that much attention to the lyrics. He's more interested in the music and the melody. And there is this contrast. It's the irony of having a really pretty melody talking about such dark
Right.
subject matter. You know, it's a really beautiful song. If you didn't pay close attention to the lyrics, you could quite happily think it was just a gospel song. or
Sure.
something. And Stuart's like ramped up the irony on this one. It's like, oh, what did you do today, son? Well, mother, I killed my brother.
Yeah.
Oh, and what did you learn? You know, it's really undercutting the whole thing. I think that's hilarious.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's a really well-arranged piece of music, and like you said, I'd love to hear it on live instrument.
Yeah. Minnie Riperton.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit of that kind of it's that sweetness,
Yeah.
you know, of like, you know, loving you, that kind of track.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, I think if you're listening through the playlist and you're going, that's dark. This really isn't. So as a bit of counterpoint to that, I think this is great.
Yeah. Cool, Asymptotes, back on it again.
Absolutely, and this is another cracker.
I think this is the best one yet, Asymptotes.
Right. Yeah, so she says, we never really hear why the son killed the brother, and it got me thinking about the occasional necessity of violence.
Yeah, a bit of mice and men vibe of that sort.
Right.
Of, you know, you've got to kill your brother.
Right. Yeah. She says influenced by Lorne, which is not someone I've come across, but if you enjoyed this, then there's something to go and explore.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, again, it's a really visceral approach to it. The percussion is another standout feature of this one. Again, like you want to make sure you've got headphones on for this to get the full impact.
Because the bass is huge as well.
Yeah.
It's great bass. There's a synth that comes in when it sort of first drops just after the minute mark. It's like it reminds me of Gary Newman or something like that, but it's obviously a really dark version of that. But like there's snippets in there that are very catchy. On that particular synth I'm thinking of.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I do hear that now.
It's not nearly as jolly as that, of course, but it's like a
Right.
warped sort of, taking those early electronic sounds and warping them. I think it's cool. Mare's Blood as a title, great.
Right.
You know, but this way they've pulled out a particular lyric to put in the description each time. It's always a really poignant lyric they pull out, and I just think the first one had vocals in it. When they did Cruel Mother or Seven Long Years, there were vocals in that, and I would really like to hear more of that.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking forward to full vocals in all takes next time.
Yeah,
from everyone.
A cappella choirs all around.
I can recommend a good autotune.
Cool. So SMOPH has sent in a version.
That's it. And you've admitted to being quite influenced by this take.
I know. This is the one I did a cover of. No, it's really cool though. I should say actually, SMOPH is the recording name of Sophie Thompson, who is also the drummer in Pale Rider. It's a Liverpool-based psychedelic rock band that are really worth checking out as well. Sophie's stuff as SMOPH has traditionally been a little bit more
chilled out.
Yeah, more sort of chilled out and ambient. But this one's a real thrash through, and I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah. Vocals by Vicky Haywood as well.
Phrygian mode again, isn't it? Same as Asymptotes.
Yeah, but it's using that harmonic minor kind of figure that gives it that quality. But it's very typical of that sort of psychedelic rock sound. Actually, now you mention it.
Yeah. I love that bass line that loops. Dung, 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 dung,
Yeah.
That reminds me of like Wooden Ships and Moon Duo and those artists who just have that bass line rolling and rolling.
Hookworms, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. There's actually a particular feedback tail I really like in this one. Somewhere around sort of, where is it? Let me find it. Yeah, so at 2 minutes 50, the feedback tail ends that's been coming out of the previous section. And and then it ends, and then there's just another little bit of feedback after it. And I love that. That's the sort of thing that, makes it feel real to me.
Right.
I do stuff like that all the time.
Yeah. It's when the guitar comes in the first time actually that really grabs me. You've got that distorted guitar with a rising figure.
Yeah. The drums are MIDI drums, but they sound really good.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell. I messaged her back and said, "Oh, what's the space you record drums in?" And she said, "No, I just programmed them in Logic." But
there you go.
I was fooled.
But yeah, it's the energy, the overall space and sound
that
this track has that really stands out for me.
That's the blood of my walking hound, oh lady mother, my lady mother. That's the blood of my walking hound, she will not rule by me.
We've got a version from Catapholc.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, back again with another really slow-paced drone ambient kind of sound.
Even slower than last time, I think.
It is, and as we said last time, we'd be perfectly happy for that to go on for 4 times the length. I think same again with this one.
Right, yeah. Well, it's very filmic, isn't it? I mean, I'm reminded of like the Blade Runner soundtrack,
Right,
and with that
yeah.
synth that comes in, even like the Drive soundtrack or something like that.
Sure. Well, they've actually said this one's a bit of a homage to Pete Namlock and Dr. Atmo's classic Omid/Hope. So if you're into this, then go give that a listen as well.
Cool.
So again, very similar process from the last one. Starting off with just the bass guitar, building the layers in. Again, all recorded on GarageBand.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just a little bit of reverb added in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and liberal use of volume pedal on this one. So.
Right, is that what it is? Those swells of the guitar.
That's it.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And so you'll kind of, if you've been listening along carefully, you'll notice they hinted at the melody towards the end, and that is as sort of happens with this style of music, your notes sort of start to lose relation a little bit, so melodies can be quite hard to pick out. But this, you totally can hear it in there.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Yeah, and a nice progression. It keeps me engaged throughout. Things change enough to keep me going.
That's it. Yeah, just the right man.
Yeah, I really like those sounds of the intro. They're so deep. I mean, it's almost like there's an octave pedal or something like that. And quite a fine hiss across the top, which I really like.
Yeah. So you're in the room,
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
it sounds like it's happening in a real space, and that's great.
Cool. So we have another take from Pomegranate Jones.
Yeah, and Winters.
That's right. And I really like this one. I really like what they do anyway. Their approach, and you'll get this from the artwork a little bit, is almost sort of sound collage.
Yeah.
I think what I like about this one, what they've done with the vocals is they've kind of chopped them up a bit, so you never quite get a full vocal line. You can hear the melody in there, you can hear the lines in there, but they just cut them off before you actually get the thing. And what they've said about this is they felt like the lyrics had a really weird internal logic to them. This idea that can't be your dog's blood because it's the wrong color or something like that. They just felt like that was a kind of a weird thing that you just have to kind of accept.
Right. Yeah.
And so they said they wanted to try and attack that a bit by breaking up the vocals a little bit.
Right.
And I think that's really cool actually. It reminded me quite a bit of Asymptotes track, the first from the first episode. That sort of mixed up vocals that you can't ever quite grasp the full thing. You just hear little snips of.
Yeah. I mean, Pomegranate Jones, the stuff that, and actually Winters was on last month's track as well. So Pomegranate Jones and Winters, it is that soundscape. I want to use the word bloated, and that's not that might sound like an insult, but they are these bloated soundscapes that really weigh on your ears. It lifts a bit towards the end of this track. But I really like that. So you're sort of being pummeled. Certainly in last month's track.
Well, that's it.
But again, with this one, it's like there's a lot going on. It's so dense.
But it works, doesn't it? And that's the thing. It's like, how quick can we fill the mix? Just from all angles, but like with some really interesting sounds. And so so you're just kind of forced to sit there and absorb it.
Yeah.
There's something quite euphoric about this one, actually.
Right.
I think it's to do with there's a kind of marching snare kind of thing going through, and then the chords are quite bright and major, and they kind of get brighter as it goes along. If nothing else, it's just a really lovely mix of sounds.
Yeah, great take. So we got a version here by JIAL featuring Meg Wassell on vocals.
I really like that someone has done a take like this. It's a really kind of energetic modern jazz take.
Worth mentioning that both JIAL and JIAL, otherwise known as Josh Lambdin and Meg Wassell, are part of the Sundown Jazz Society, so if you like this, then it's worth checking them out.
Absolutely. It's the chords that really make this one stand out for me. But in particular, the way that the melody then kind of sits over the top and kind of ties those chords together really draws you in, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think the drumming's amazing. I've got to say something about the drumming because the drums are live. So I was talking to JIAL about this and he was saying he's just found a way to a space to set up his drums, and he's only using 3 microphones to record them, which is pretty impressive sound.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, they're really going for it,
Yeah,
aren't they?
yeah.
Very-
Yeah, I actually saw a picture from their Instagram that the space to record is actually outside in the garden. So
Oh, I didn't even spot that. Yeah. Wow.
so kudos.
Yeah, fair enough. I like the outro.
Yeah.
Really nice. Just a little tale of some really nice harmonies.
Yeah, sort of soulful
Yeah.
vocal harmonies. Yeah. Lyrically, what they've done is quite interesting as well. They've sort of rearranged it slightly. So rather than being the straight dialogue between the two, it first kind of outlines the acts of animal slaughter, and then the mother's response comes as one,
Right.
and then you get this reveal of the murder. I think what they've done in doing that is there are sort of now 4 or 5 distinct movements, distinct sections, which are kind of separated out by the instrumentation and the ideas that they're using. And I think that structuring in that way, I don't know, almost kind of gives you these little pauses before it goes into the next section and allows you to sort of take in what you just heard, and then before it then dives in. So it's less of a sort of narrative flow going through the whole thing, and more of a moving in acts, I think. So I really rate that.
How came that blood on your shirt? Oh, dear Lord, tell me. Oh, it is the blood of my brother-in-law that went away with me. Oh, that went away with me.
Cool, so we've got a version here by Hope House Assemble, which is a collective based in Leeds, featuring Rory Wells, Manu Brigadista, Kirsty McFire, and Adam Capture, the credits read. This is a really nice take. This is the one that directly confronts the Black Lives Matter protests that are going on right now. So they've included parts of speeches by Bobby Seale and Malcolm X from the 60s.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. And it's interesting. It's a really strong vibe on this one. There's almost a sort of, I'm going to say Gregorian chant, but it's not quite that. But it's got that sort of that chant quality to it almost.
Yeah, it reminds me of that band Goats, who
Right.
did an album called Commune, which is why I think I would describe it as a commune jam. But I mean, Hope House Assemble as well. Hope House, it's a house where he lives, and it's a play on ensemble. But they are activists for sure, and Yeah, it's cool. It's really nice to have a politically motivated one. I think it is, like I said at the beginning of the show, this is a big part of what I've been thinking about this month personally. And
Sure, and I think though the samples feel really really well chosen and really
Yeah.
well integrated as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they form a really nice bed for that kind of stuff to just sit, and then you've got that chant almost as a response to that.
Yeah.
So there's a real contemplative kind of heavy vibe to this.
There is no lift, is there?
No.
There's no point at which you're lifted from this desolate place, to use my favourite word again.
Right.
It's the word of the month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yeah, no, I think it really, really creates a mood really effectively, and powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
Call that violence. I don't in any way encourage black people to go out and initiate acts of aggression indiscriminately against whites. But I do believe that the black man in the United States and any human being, anywhere, is well within his right to do whatever is necessary by any means necessary to protect his life and property, especially in a country where the federal government itself has proven that it is either unable or unwilling to protect the lives and property of those human beings.
So, got another take from John Paiva. He's developed a bit of a brand of retelling stories. He's sort of telling the other story, telling the story that happens after the song or something like that. But it's really cool. He comes up with really great ideas, I think.
Yeah, we've often talked about the idea that some of these versions are sort of conversations with the original tune, and I think that's really what John is nailing at the moment.
Yeah, so this song is all about what happens after this, and the idea of not being able to go home, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's picked out some of those really choice phrases as well. So I set my foot on a bottomless boat that crops up in some versions, and then he's used the sun and the moon image that we talked about. We really liked.
Yeah, that I really like that set your foot on a bottomless boat section. It's sort of major 7 chords, is it? And it's very dreamy. It's like it sort of reminds me of a Pink Floyd track, although I can't remember which one off the top of my head. But really dreamy section there, which sort of cuts through the more riff-based verses.
Yeah.
Backing vocals really rich. It's quite empty apart from the guitar and the backing vocals, but I don't think it needs much more than that.
No, and what you've got is a bit of a dialogue between the two vocals. So you've got this that when it comes in, when you return, that's really nice. I really like that. So when will you return?
And that's in that dreamy section.
Yeah, totally. And that could be the mother's voice maybe, or the kind of it's really nicely developed.
I'll set my foot on a bottomless boat and sail upon the sea. When the sun and moon meet, and that will never be. Will you I'll set my foot on a bottomless boat and sail upon the sea. Will you when the sun...
We've had a take sent in from Jarv.
Yeah. Jarv, musician based in Lesbos, showcasing our international credentials.
I mean, he's English, though. He's very English.
All right. Yeah, it's great. I really like it. You know what? For a long time at the beginning of this track, I thought it was going to be fully a cappella. When I first hit play, I wasn't expecting it to be a cappella. And then once we had like a full verse in a cappella, I thought, great, this whole version is going to be a cappella.
Right.
I mean, not that I would have preferred that to what we eventually got, but I was...
No.
It's really nice harmonies. And
It's really joyful.
Yeah.
Actually. And there's a real contrast to this. I was saying that he's used this really lovely rising progression throughout the thing, and it's almost there's almost this kind of clip-clop waltz feel to it as well. Especially as the instruments come in, you get that sense.
Yeah.
So he's got this really joyful sounding song. They're quite hopeful, actually.
Yeah.
But then, the lyrical content, as we've discussed, is the same.
Yeah. Having said it's really joyful, it does not finish on a joyful note. And one of the things I really like about it is when all the instruments cut out, full stop, and you just get that solo vocal and finishing on the minor chord. I think that's a really nice touch.
Right, yeah.
It makes the whole thing make sense, really.
Yeah. It's quite quite sort of bedroom lo-fi aesthetic.
Yeah, I was talking to him about this, and he uses a Casio tone keyboard, which actually he's used on other tracks as well. He did a version of Sunshine on Leith by the Proclaimers about a year ago, which also uses this. And I think it's really interesting sound because it's the sort of keyboard a lot of musicians just wouldn't look twice at. You know, you would really turn your nose up at it, and it produces the sort of synth line and the drums, and he uses it for that. And I admire that he used it because I think it does sound great. And in this Sunshine on Leith track, it sounds great. Also in this, it sounds great.
Yeah. But I think, for me, it's the vocal harmonies that stand out there, really, because you've got these really distinct lines at really distinct registers as well. The bass is really strong.
Yeah.
He's got falsetto in there as well, and that's really strong. And then the kind of main melody line is also really strong. So and I think it's the power of that drives the thing forward.
On the glen, oh, Lady Mother, my Lady Mother, sun and moon beyond the glen, I hope never will be. I hope never will be.
Yeah, so I think those were absolutely incredible. A huge thanks to everyone who has submitted a track for this episode. Yeah, we can't wait to hear what you come up with for the next one. So, for the next month, we are talking about The Brisk Lad. Jack, do you want to tell us what it's all about?
Yeah. I find this song really compelling. I really like the protagonist. Basically, the protagonist is a sheep poacher, steals sheep off farmers, and it's just their story. There's not really much of a narrative to it other than we're going to go and steal sheep in the night. Under the moonlight, we're going to go and steal sheep. And when the cops turn up to ask what's going on, we're just going to swear it's all our own. And that's that. But it's a painting of a character more than a story, actually.
Right, because it's all happening. This is a statement of intent rather than a description of activities.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, you say that you warm to this character. I mean, there's a clear... in the first verse, we learn about their poverty. Do you think that's a part of the element?
Oh, they're a bit of a Jack the Lad, aren't they? It's a bit Robin Hood, you know. It's a little bit like, the farmer's got loads of fat sheep. You know, the farmer's probably a bastard, let's be honest. A rich landowner is being cheated by a scamp, you know.
Okay, yeah. Considering that, though, it's quite a grisly depiction.
Well, do you think so? Why do you say that?
Oh, it's that verse, children shall pull the sheep, the
skin from the wool.
Skin from the wool.
Yeah.
Carve it up to the bone. You know, it's quite what they're going to do to this sheep is, granted there's only one way to skin a sheep, as it were.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And I feel like probably this is from a time where people were much more acquainted with this sort of thing, and probably most people had seen animals being slaughtered for food or even had to do it themselves.
So there's something a bit gleeful in the way he's talking about it, but I think I read it as menacing.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think that is a modern depiction because we're just squeamish about animals being killed. I mean, this is, again, the same with a lot of the songs we've been looking at. We're talking about murders.
We're gradually transitioning away from kind of homicide and into, just straight up animal killing.
Yeah.
There are no killings in the next couple, so that's,
Yeah, that is good. This is the last killing of the podcast. Yeah, it reminds me of there's a tune I always loved was "Little Cow and Calf Are Going to Die" by Skip James, which is all about a blues singer singing about a cow and calf going to slaughter, and it was just sort of something that happened back then, I think.
Right.
So these things sound very menacing under modern understandings of them, but.
And so, what made you choose this tune?
Well, I've liked this tune for a long time. I first heard it when I was living in Hereford. I heard it performed by a band called Vagina Apocalypse.
Great name.
In fact, they've given us permission to play a snippet. Shall we listen to that now?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll take a fat ewe from his pack. With the aid of my knife, I'll shorten its life. And I'll carry him home on my back, my brave boys. I will carry him home on my back.
So that's the last track on their album Success Proof, which you can find on their Bandcamp. Really great band. Go and support them. Yeah, lovely version, that. The harmonies are really nice. Seeing them perform it live was really great. Just 2 members in that band. Thanks very much for allowing us to play that.
Yeah, it's really lovely the way this one opens out, because the start is just one vocal, which I believe they've based this on the Richard Dawson.
So when I got in touch with them to ask the name of this tune, because when I first heard it, I heard them play it live, and I couldn't find it for a long time, so I got in touch with them, and they said we heard it from Richard Dawson, and Richard Dawson's one of my heroes.
Yeah.
It's a sparser version. In fact, should we have a listen to that as well?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
I am a brisk lad and my fortune is quite bad. In fact, it is wondrous poor. But it's I do intend my fortune to mend, and I'll build me a house down on the moor, my brave boys. I will build me a house down on the moor.
Yeah, so obviously this version is Richard Dawson through and through. And actually, you know, I think the reason I warm to the main character so much is because I see Richard in that position.
Oh, totally. And it's so totally his shtick as well. Because it reminded me, you introduced me to that tune, Poor Old Horse, a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And like, oh gosh, it's just, there are certain tunes that his voice, once you've heard them in his voice, you can't unhear them.
Yeah. Another one about an animal being killed.
Yeah.
He suits that, doesn't he? He's got the image of a slaughterer somehow. Thanks, Richard, for letting us play that.
Yeah, incredible. We've also got a version that I came across when I was checking out some stuff by a band called Stick in the Wheel.
Yeah.
Who very much they've for a few years now they've been doing sort of more kind of fusing old folk tunes with more electronic kind of techniques.
Yeah, if you're interested in what we're doing here, you'll definitely be interested in them. So.
Yeah, and so it was funny. I was just sending you a recommendation to check this band out, and as I was typing the message, I was like, oh, hang on, this tune, this is Brisk Lad. So, but they've called it There Is Work to Be Done, which is kind of based on one of the lines in it. Yeah, we'll play a bit of that for you now. Great, and so that one's completely instrumental, but what I really like about this, it's just it really captures the kind of dark, sort of grisly vibe of this tune. That's from a mixtape called Against the Loathsome Beyond, which I heartily recommend. Go and check that out.
So there's a couple of versions to get you started thinking about it. I'm really looking forward to working on this one. Like I say, this is my pick. I'm really hoping to do something live for this one, you know?
Right.
Like something that I can perform in my front room and sort of upload a video of as well.
A huge thanks for listening. We really hope you've enjoyed this episode of Old Tunes Fresh Takes. Just a reminder, if you want to take part and learn the Brisk Lad along with us, then go and check out our Facebook, Twitter and SoundCloud pages. There you'll find everything you need to get started, including scores, chord sheets, lyrics, Spotify playlists and YouTube links as well. Links to these pages can be found in the description of this episode.
Our next episode's out on the 20th of July, so we're asking people to try and get their takes to us by Monday the 13th of July. That's the 13th of July, and then we'll be able to include your version in the podcast. If you can't manage that, just get in touch. If it's going to be a bit late, we'll share it on anyway. We can be a bit flexible with the deadline, so like I say, just give us a message and we'll be keen to help you where we can.
Once again, this is for absolutely everyone to take part in, regardless of your style or ability. We're really looking forward to hearing your fresh takes.